Hello and welcome back to After the Movies, the show where we talk about movies after you've seen them. And this movie has been out for a long time. My name is Luke, and with me is
Jonathan.
and this movie is Kingdom of Heaven. And let me just start out by saying that Kingdom of Heaven opens with a shot of people riding on their horses, and then it fades to black again so that they can come up with Kingdom of Heaven. Then the snow comes in, and then the movie actually starts. So for some reason, Ridley Scott and/or the editor felt like putting in this riding horse shot before the movie even started, just to pad it a little bit longer, because doing slow-mo throughout a 3-hour movie just wasn't enough to slow down the movie. So we're just gonna take some time to put in some extra shots. So, Jonathan.
I would argue that the reason those shots are there are to be like time for you to process things and have emotional responses. The problem I had, and this is where it really, as I had no emotional responses. That's the thing. I get, and if you have an emotional response, if you have like a thought-provoking thought from a question that's being asked by the movie, right? Then those shots actually really work. Slow motion works. It gives you time to kind of like meditate on the idea, think about it, see the visual that goes with it, and then move on to the next thing. That's actually, I think that can be a good thing plenty of times.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you can't use slow-mo. Like, you can, like at 300.
But here's the amazing thing to me about this movie. Okay, I really liked this movie when I was younger. When it first came out, I was watching it and felt like I really felt like I went on a long journey. I felt like there was some really cool thoughts and philosophy being asked and things like that. Like there was cool action. Like it just there was a lot of things that came together. I didn't like everything. I even knew that back then. I didn't like everything, but for the most part, I was like, this is pretty good. Um, and I watched it again and again as I kept on growing up, and I still enjoyed it. And I don't know what's happened. I cannot pinpoint exactly. I don't know if I've grown some, or if it's the fact that I watched that director's cut that just pissed me off, or what. But finally getting to a place where watching the theatrical cut again, which is my preferred version, uh,
Mostly because it's 50 minutes shorter.
mainly because it cuts out subplots that I thought changed everything and made it a
Mm-hmm,
different
mm-hmm.
movie. Um, Either I can't forget about those things, or something has happened where watching this movie, even having liked it long before and knowing what's happening, after about an hour of this viewing, I found myself where I thought would be relatively impossible, which was I didn't care. I didn't like this movie. I didn't want to watch any more of this movie. I don't know if it's a mood thing. I don't know if it's like I grew up or something. I don't know what's happened. But suddenly, Kingdom of Heaven became this movie that I thought to myself, this movie is boring. I do not care what's going on, and all the philosophy and stuff that I used to kind of think was kind of interesting. It's just a bunch of postmodern bullcrap for the most part, with a few cool things thrown in that are actually good, with the side characters who are only in there for 5 minutes. So we can go back to our postmodern bullcrap.
So,
So
so while you liked this movie as a child, I liked Condor Man once. So there we go, guys. Like sometimes it takes a while before you discover what good art is. I just want to postulate that maybe the reason why this movie is boring, besides the fact that it's super slow and they take a lot of time with just bloated stuff that just does not matter at all, is because we just don't care about the characters because we don't know what they care about, right? Like I still don't know what Orlando Bloom's goal is. What does he want?
he like so
What's
he
he striving for?
so like in the beginning of the movie, he wants forgiveness. He has essentially an existential crisis of faith and everything, and then he kind of never comes back from that. Like we don't necessarily know what he becomes an observer of the plot happening, like the world happening around him.
And
There's
see,
even a
it's
line where it's like, "What's going to become of us, Orlando?" And he's like, "The world will decide because it always decides."
right. The
Because
world will. Like
right,
there's like
not God, not
right.
like not myself, even just
Not even the fates. It's just like,
the
hey,
world.
the world just kind of keeps spinning, so stuff like it's so passive. And when people are just sitting there and nobody else is doing anything either, it just you don't care because there's nothing to care for. There's nothing to strive for. There's nothing that he's going to win that was going to make us feel like, yeah, this is great. Which is why when he finally turns over Jerusalem, which was a good move, by the way, and very great for everyone in the city, the fact that everybody's cheering doesn't make any sense. It's more like, hey, cool, yeah, let's go home. Sweet. Okay, let's go. Instead of like, yay, we totally being killed. Good job. What? There's nothing motivated that happens.
Yeah, there's a lot of cheering for Balian, the main character in the movie, especially towards the second half, end of the movie. Like, he becomes this hero figure. At least that's what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Except that this time watching the movie, all I could think was, why?
Right.
Why are you? Like, how did you hear about? And what did he? What is it that he has done that makes you so enamored
Exactly.
or happy
Yeah.
or loyal to him?
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I don't know if there is anything that really like. You might think he's a really chill guy, you know, if you met him, but not everyone's met him. You got to be hearing about his deeds, right? And like you're saying, he's there are things he's a part of, but they're all very like things just happen to him.
Yes.
That's
Like Anakin Skywalker in Episode 1.
It's
Stuff's happening around him.
It's screenwriting 101, which is if you have a passive character, don't. It's that simple. Like I remember writing short film scripts, and the character was very passive, and it's just like he's just kind of like waiting for something to happen, and I'm setting up exposition and stuff, and it was kind of like my teachers would come to me like, he's not doing anything.
So why is
this
movie?
He's not making choices.
Right.
So why is this a movie? Like, what is this? I mean, every screenwriter's gonna have that, and there is like he makes a decision. Like, there's at least one decision in the middle of the movie about will he be willing to take on the throne and let Guy be tried and executed and marry the woman that he's already slept with and everything like that to make the world a better place. And he says no, and it's supposed to come off as he references this idea that the king sets up, which is morals are not based off of convenience. Being godly or faithful is not based off of convenience or.
You just got to make good choices.
You got to do what's right, no matter if it's a king above you or who. You got to just make the right decision. Your soul's in your own keeping.
Yep.
Great thought.
Good stuff.
The movie then undermines it with its own postmodern viewpoint of the world because he's already slept with this. So there's a woman who comes into his life. She's already married. He has an adulterous affair with her.
Mm-hmm. Why? Because she's there.
I guess. Again, very passive. He doesn't pursue.
Yes.
It's not like he's pursuing her.
So passive. She has to pursue him and be like, hey, by the way, the reason why I'm here, just to spell it out for you, is so that we can like sleep together. And he's like, oh. All right. And she's like, so can we sleep together now? And he's like, well. She's like, sweet, let's do it. Like, he doesn't make choices, and he never says no. And so, like, to then be, like, in the one moment where he actually could have made a good choice, like a kingdom of conscience choice, like, hey, if I care about people, I'm going to do this to get rid of evil. Like, if he actually had a conscience.
Or if it was, I'm lawful, and I won't, like, it's a lawful thing where we don't have enough evidence to convict this guy. We know it's him, but we can't convict him of it lawfully. Or if it's hey, I want to make sure it really is a matter of my soul, and I don't want my soul to be tainted, so I can't go down that road. I can't have a man's death. Any of those things would work if you're consistent and that's actually what he wants, and it's not established. And or if that's what you're trying to say now, you have established something else. You've undermined yourself earlier in the story.
Well, and even like, hey, I can't have man's blood on my hands. Yes, you can, because you've already killed.
Right,
somebody.
At the very beginning of the movie.
Very beginning of the movie, he killed somebody.
As I'm saying, the script's already undermined. Like, what he's done is already undermined. And it's not even if he had murdered somebody and he says, I will never have an man's blood on my,
right.
I'll never do that again, right? Like, even if that was a thing.
Right.
Which it isn't.
Right, but if it had been, then you'd be
sense.
like, okay, yeah, I'll give that to you, man. Like, good job, way to stick with your newfound principles.
And so you're very unclear, but here's a funny thing. I recently watched Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and what's funny to me about this is that Bill and Ted, the two guys who are purposely acting as a bunch of like the Keanu Reeves back in the day, right? Whoa, man. Like totally dumb dudes. They seem clueless and aimless, but they're not. They have goals. They have to make wild stallions.
That's right.
They have to avoid getting put into military school. They have to complete the test at all costs. Like, they have clear goals. Even the doofuses who seem aimless and stupid and aloof have very clear goals, and they even know that. Like, we've got to do this, dude.
And you care about them because of it. You care that they get the girl at the end, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
you care about. Whereas this, it's like, hey, we're walking through the desert with all these people hand in
And
hand
and
now.
Orlando Bloom, and like his performance, like he seems much more pensive and thoughtful and intelligent, but he's just wondering.
Yep,
He's just reactionary to things, which
is weak.
is weak as a story. Yes, I
Yep.
think it's very much kind of Ridley Scott and whoever, the filmmakers behind it, kind of being like, there's just so much violence for all not good enough reasons, and there's so much religious strife, and all for the wrong things. And if you really just were observing it like Orlando Bloom is, you just kind of realize how crazy everything is, and you'd focus on these things and get out of there. And that's kind of what I want to say. Why can't we all just get along? Kind of message. But if even that's not as strong as it could be, because again, you've got a character who's very aloof. So
And like, and just if we look at history, like people are killing each other, not because like they've just always killed each other, but there's actually like actual like animosity and stuff going on that
there are,
maybe
yep.
it is poor, bad religion, bad philosophy, fanatical stuff that we talk about earlier in this movie. Maybe so. Okay. But it's still happening. So what's the correct response? And that is far better done in like The Mission, right? What's the proper response to evil? Like, what, like there are so many good things you could do with it, and Ridley Scott is just like, man.
It, yeah, it doesn't even really dive into the ideological differences between a Christian and a Muslim, or really even a Christian and a Christian. Like,
Right.
we might see examples like, obviously these guys are interested in starting a war. For why? Don't necessarily know. Apparently it's
Right.
just like, we're into killing infidels, like that's the path to heaven, that's what we want to do, warmongering, yay.
Right.
And the other guys were like, you know reactionary, and or like, why can't we just like be in peace and not have like. And I kind of see some of that, but even there, it's like, what's the real like, what's the ideological, why this and not this?
Right.
If
What's
you're on
the underlying
if
stuff?
you're on one side or the other, what's the reason why?
Right. Except for that you're bad and you're good. Like that's it. Like
And again, I always thought of Brendan Gleeson's character with the red hair and the big beard, and he's kind of crazy the whole time. I always found him to be like crazy, like he's this crazy guy. He just doesn't even care, like what. And I found myself this time watching the movie and kind of thinking to myself, wow, I find Renault to make more sense to me actually in this world than any of the other characters right now. Why? Because his whole thing is nothing makes any sense and I just do whatever. That's his thing. And he doesn't have to have a motive for that. He's crazy, right? Yeah. So he makes sense. Meanwhile, everybody else is kind of like, we got to stop this. Why? Because it's bad. Why? I can't tell you that, man.
Right.
Because I would totally do that earlier or later in my life. So
yeah, I liked your point earlier when we were talking about how like this is what happens when an agnostic like tries to make a movie about religion, right? Like if you don't actually understand the religious ideas behind stuff, then it's gonna be a really poor movie talking about those religious ideas because you're talking about something you didn't even bother to research. Like there's so much information out there about why this tension is going on, and we can go back thousands of years into what's going on here, and yet it's like, well, it's because they're religious fanatics.
And it's either that, or you did do your research and you decided that you just wanted to disregard it, or you didn't think,
Right.
Or it's really it's very much watching it. It does feel like a perspective piece, like not like a really solid story, and not necessarily
no story.
Not, I mean, it's kind of preachy with some of the things it does, but it's not even necessarily overly preachy because that requires you to have a message that you're trying to like drill into somebody.
Right.
It's very much just kind of like a observational perspective piece, which makes me feel it makes the movie feel very postmodern. It makes it feel very kind of like, who's right, who's wrong? I don't know, man. Let's just look
at people.
Whoa.
Yeah.
To quote the 80s.
The Bill and Ted.
Bill
that
and
would have
Ted.
been, better.
So watching it again, I was kind of shocked that I didn't like it as much. But going through, like, it just, these things became very apparent to me. And there's Ridley Scott always does a fantastic job on making a really cool looking world.
Good sets.
And some cool set pieces and stuff.
Some good explosions here and there.
And that's even good. Some cool side characters. But
the priest dude, he's pretty sweet.
For the most part, it's just a
riding off in the sunset. Yeah.
Lackluster movie.
Lackluster, which is kind of sad because this is an epic movie piece. Like that, this is a movie about epicness, like large scale sets, big scale wars, people lighting on fire, a Wilhelm scream, like all of this stuff, and yet at the end, it's kind of this small little movie because the ideas are small and little, and there's so much good stuff that could have been in this movie.
Yep, there are some great hints at themes. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's just hints. I think when I was younger, I infused it with everything else I wanted it to have.
Yeah.
You get the hints here and there, like a father coming to claim his son and keep
Right.
him away from a murder. Like there's some great things going on, but they're small and they don't necessarily matter in the story. Like it's just
Because it doesn't change characters, right? The events happen, but we don't see the change in the character, and that could be because we didn't actually meet the character to see how they've grown. We don't see what they were to who they've become. We don't see redemption. We don't see change. We don't see growth. We don't see their goals being fulfilled or them growing more, beyond their goals. Like, let's say that Orlando Bloom had been like, hey, I really just want to marry a really hot girl. And then a really hot girl comes along and he's like, you know what? This is more important than the really hot girl that I could have married. Like, that would have been something. As is, I'll sleep with her and then I'll choose. Yeah. So, yeah. Kingdom of Heaven. Eh.
sorry guys. Sorry.
So, yeah, thanks for watching After the Movies, and hopefully we'll watch something really awesome next time, because, whoo,
Woo!